Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar on cutting-edge enterprise file features with market-leading object storage. My name is Ana de Jorge and I'm in charge of the Marketing and Communications department at SME, and today I will be moderating this webinar. I would like to introduce today's presenters. So this webinar will be hosted by Nigel Houghton, Channel Sales Director at Scality, and Jim Liddell, CEO at Storage Made Easy. Welcome both of you. Into this session, they will be showing us how to transform unstructured file issues. So now, on your screen, you should be able to see the agenda for this webinar. Nigel will introduce Scality, followed by Jim, who will talk about the Storage Made Easy, as well as the benefits of the joint solution. So then James Norman, Engineering Manager at SME, will be giving a demo about the Storage Made Easy Enterprise Fabric. And well, just a reminder, there will be a recorded version of this webinar available. Please feel free to ask your questions in the chat box. We will try to answer all of them at the end of the session. And we will also provide, of course, our contact details for us to continue any discussion after the webinar has ended. So I hope you enjoy, and thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Anna. So Nigel Houghton here from Scality. So just wanted to make a quick introduction to Scality, just to see, make sure that you know who we are. You may have heard of us already, which would be great. So Scality has been a company around since 2009. We've very fast become a trusted storage advisor for some of the largest storage companies in the world. We originate really from the telco market, where we're used to providing extreme levels of availability of platforms. So if you take a look at us at a glance, daily we have nearly 500 million people that are accessing data on Scality. We're running into the hundreds of billions of objects stored, and very soon we'll be moving into the trillions. And we've got lots of worldwide customers that rely on Scality as their trusted storage partner. We've got customers now in lots of continents, from North and South America to Europe, Japan, and Asia, and we're also backed by funding from United States, Europe, and Japan as well. So we've got a solid set of investors and making sure that we're moving forward in this very exciting market of storing data for object storage. So Scality has come into the market where we're moving very quickly away from appliances to a more software-defined system running on industry standard servers, and our ethic has been very much from the start to be able to run on any server. So we qualify to the Linux level, and what we've built into the product is a very, very high level of resiliency. It's got automatic self-healing. You'll see a customer in a couple of slides time that shows the level of resilience that we perform to. The architecture is what we call shared nothing, so it's extremely scalable. We've got many customers that are in the tens of petabytes of storage scale already, and they're easily able to grow. Some of them are doubling their capacity every year inside the same system. That shared nothing architecture also means that as the system grows, then the overall performance will increase as well. So there's no real concept in our system of a system topping out or getting bottlenecks. And the great thing is that we understand that these platforms are going to evolve over time. And we know that next year and the year after there'll be new hard drive capacities, new efficient ways of storing data, more efficient server platforms. We even have customers that may choose to move away from a specific hardware provider and move to a second or even third provider, and we can mix and match that hardware as the system grows. So you're always able to choose the most economic platform of choice as you expand the system. And then the way that the software is licensed by usable capacity. So our customers only need to license what the usable space is, and then when that's upgraded, then you buy more licenses. When you need to retire servers, you just retire them gracefully and add new ones. So there's no concept of this forklift upgrade anymore. So if you look at the market as such, we're now seeing IDC and Gartner take a big interest, and big enterprises are now asking these organizations to evaluate the market. Scality comes out extremely well. In fact, Gartner's just released a Magic Quadrant, and Scality appears there as a leader in that space. And that's in recognition of the technology, the spread of customers that we have around the world, and the work that we're doing in moving the technology forward to make it much more usable for customers. Now, I mentioned that we have a company called Telenet, where we provide extreme levels of resilience. This is an infographic that shows that Telenet have been a customer since 2010. They've been through 6 generations of servers. They've been through 4 different capacity points for hard drives, and they've expanded from 144 terabytes up to nearly 3 petabytes in that time. There have been some configuration changes, application upgrades, as well as upgrading the Ring software underneath as well. And you can see at the top that Telenet have not experienced 1 second of downtime. So this is the kind of level of resilience that I was talking about that we're used to dealing with. And so we're now moving and allowing customers to provide this always-on capability that modern users of systems are looking to achieve right now. So the last slide, really, to sum all of that up, is that we provide a system running in-house that provides unlimited capacity, so it's easy to scale, and remember the performance scales with that. It supports multiple workloads, so it's not tied into having one implementation per application. We've got very large telcos running multiple applications across the same infrastructure. So it's very easy to stand up new storage, stand up a new application as well. Scality RING is very good at supporting simultaneously different workloads. As I mentioned, we can run on any server platform. We provide a range of different configurations that you can have, but really any server platform that you're qualified with, we can run Scality on. And again, really hammering home that point about the reliability, because our partnership with Storage Made Easy has been incredibly powerful, because we have a large number of customers that are looking to change the way that they're providing their unstructured data. So the traditional model of being able to do that with filers came with some level of downtime built into that. And as consumers are being used to being able to consume that from anywhere with 100% availability, technologies like Scality and Storage Made Easy allowing customers to do that and offer that level of service to their internal customers, or if you're a service provider, to your external customers. So I'm going to hand over now to Jim. Jim can take you through the Storage Made Easy part of the presentation.
Thanks, Nigel. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go over a few slides about Storage Made Easy, and then James Norman, our UK engineering manager, will give a short demo demonstrating Storage Made Easy on top of the Scality RING. So Storage Made Easy was first formed in 2009. We launched our first product towards the end of 2012. We've currently got around 120 enterprise on-premise customers and ISPs using the product. We also have a SaaS hosted version that we offer for small businesses. and personal use, and we have around 300,000 users on that, and around about 1.5 billion files, and around 5,000 SaaS businesses using it. So the technology is proven. It's been out there quite a while, and ultimately what we provide in the object storage context is the ability to work with object as if it was file. So we're providing a layer that sits on top of the object to allow direct user interaction. And our focus as a company is to provide enterprises a file fabric which is able to coalesce different storage endpoints, be they on-premise or on cloud, with a particular focus on compliance and governance, which is becoming obviously increasingly a topic that enterprises need to take notice of. In the context of what we do with object storage, we focus on making it accessible and usable within the enterprise for end users. So Nigel already talked about the growth of unstructured data, and it's when you start to look at the numbers, it's quite incredible. Unstructured data is growing around 40 to 60% every year, and of that growth, enterprises are accountable for around 80% of that data. Now, a lot of that data at the moment is stored on a plethora of what I would call legacy platforms, and it's expensive. And lots of companies are buying into object storage, in which the ROI is obviously very, very compelling. I think there's no doubt about that. We see that every day as we talk to customers. In terms of the challenge of dealing with unstructured data on object storage, what we're looking to address is the ability to enable end users to access it. There are, of course, lots of what I would call tactical use cases for storing structured data on object storage, such as backup and hardware devices that pump out this data directly onto object storage. What we're actually looking to address is how you coalesce that with federated identity, how you collaborate against the data that's stored on the object storage, how you make sure it's secure and governed, and how you can set protection and compliance policies to protect your company of users of that data. So let's take a quick look at today's company storage landscape. I think it's pretty fair to say that corporate data is spread across silos. It's currently on-premise in filers and corporate apps, but increasingly it's now on cloud too, and SaaS applications. It's amazing how much data is stored on SaaS applications with things like Salesforce and Basecamp, and some of these apps that are incredibly productive, but ultimately enable what I would call fragmenting of data. Of course, there's been a lot in the press about shadow IT. There's various stats, I've picked one up. 58% of users, admit to using third-party cloud apps for sharing, and I would probably argue that the other 42% didn't admit that they were using third-party cloud apps for sharing. But it's this. It comes back to this unstructured data growth and the ability of users to want to be more productive, and in some cases turning to third-party apps and services because the apps and services that they have in the enterprise they don't believe make them productive enough. This obviously presents a huge challenge for security and compliance. The biggest asset a company can have is its data. Losing control of the physical location of data, basically lets the genie out of the bottle. It becomes very difficult for IT to enforce policies. Actually, it can become very difficult to locate key documents. And again, another stat that I pulled was that 70% of CIOs are concerned about data security, and of course they have a right to be. So what do you do to enforce sharing, retention, encryption, and how do you figure out how you track who used what, who shared what, etc. And that's one of the things that we're looking to bring to the table. We're looking to provide essentially a security, governance, and compliance hub that will not only work against object stored data, but existing data that can be stored on file, block, or cloud. we talk a lot internally to the company about delivering the last mile of object storage to end user desktops. So, object storage such as Scality is incredibly powerful, incredibly resilient, and always on. But how do you get it into the hands of the end user? It comes with an API, but end users are not going to access object storage over an API. And to that end, in the delivery world, there's this sort of phenomenon of how you get the goods on the last mile to the customer. And we do pretty much exactly the same for object storage. We're looking to make the use of object storage almost transient to the end customer. They don't really know that they're using it. All they know is that they're accessing data in the way that they're used to accessing data. Integrations directly into the desktop or on mobile. The SME solution is a software solution. It's a software appliance. It works on a variety of technologies, such as Xen, Hyper-V, KVM, VMware. It can be deployed on IaaS infrastructures, such as EC2, for example, from Amazon Web Services. It provides a full corporate experience, but more in a way that end consumers are used to. So you get mobile apps and sharing apps. You get unified access, whether that's on mobile or desktop. It integrates with best-of-breed productivity tools such as email. So you've got plugins to access object storage, for example, directly in Microsoft Office or Outlook or Mac Mail. And it has some gateway features to facilitate the access to object storage from, I guess what people today would call legacy protocols, such as FTP, WebDAV, terminal access through SFTP. We have a use case in the US, whereby a very large medical institution, the only way that they can access data is through the terminal, through SFTP. The backend data is object storage, but we facilitate the access to that. So just a very brief look at some of the governance and compliance features that the product comes with. So one of the things that the product can do is provide user-controlled encryption, which means that the SME appliance can control encryption before it actually lands on the object storage. And these keys are controlled by end-user IT. There's also the ability to set policies around all secure file sharing or geo access, for example, or IP control. And once these policies are set, they're enforced by all of the end-user apps and access. We also audit every file event. So if the company indeed has or has not got a compliance officer, if you get a legislative data request on whose access was what data, which of course is going to be increasingly used in Europe with some of the new compliance laws that are coming out, then the software can facilitate a very easy mechanism to be able to figure out who's accessed what and how to hand it off. The product also supports file version and locking and a trash mechanism, and we've built in support for things like legal hold and DLP, taking advantage of some of the storage policies on the Scality object storage, but surfacing that at a higher level. Of course, one of the things that end users end up doing in teams is collaboration. And if you're going to use object storage in a manner where you're delivering it to end users, you've got to be able to enable them to collaborate. And the product is set up well for that. It was designed for teams from the beginning. So as well as being able to hook into LDAP or Active Directory or something like SAML from a federated identity perspective, it also has the ability to have shared team folders, things like project workspaces or data rooms, full built-in web office editing or cloud to desktop editing, something we call Cloud Edit. It has a full PDF annotation suite, and it enables users to do things like file commenting with notifications and even things like bookmark links with notifications. So it's got a full collaboration suite built throughout the product. In terms of one of the other things that you want to do with large amounts of data is you want to be able to search against it. We thought about this early with the product, and we take advantage of a best-of-breed search engine product called Apache Lucene or Apache Solr, which enables us to. We've built a connector into that product. It comes bundled with that product, or we can take advantage of one that already exists. And essentially, it allows us to mine the metadata of unstructured documents, so that when you do a search, you're actually searching against the unstructured documents. So essentially, you can turn your corporate data that's stored on object storage into your own private Google. And this is just an example of how that works from the browser. So you get a what you see is what you get driven view of what you're searching for, and then we'll go back to the object storage and we'll look inside of the actual documents to find it. And that filters through not only on the desktop, but also on our iOS apps and Android apps. And of course, that view is predicated on your identity management system giving permission to access the documents within the relevant bucket, container, or folder. So lastly, before I hand over to James for a demo, I'd just like to briefly talk about some of the use cases that the combined SME and Scality object storage can be used for. So Nigel talked earlier about file replacement. We see that quite often as a strategic use case for companies who want to embrace the ROI of object storage. So, the combined solution between SME and Scality can be turned into what is commonly referred to as an enterprise corporate Dropbox, but private and secure and controlled by the company. From a point of view of what we bring on top of the object storage, we're bringing some of the business level features of data, the auditing, the governance, the policies. Of course, there are many companies who will have legacy hardware or legacy software that needs to output data into WebDAV, FTP, or SFTP format. In that event, the product is a good facilitator of being able to provide that access into the object storage. We take care of the federated identity. So if you want end users to use object storage and you have a use case where you need federated identity access, we facilitate that. Of course, content search is a huge piece if you're storing lots of unstructured data. We've seen a lot of use cases on that, particularly in medical and legal, around the storing of data and the ability to want to access and search that data. And ultimately, a lot of these fall back into that concept of delivering the last mile of object storage to end users to give them this full desktop integrated experience. At this point, I'd like to hand across to James, who's our UK engineering manager, and he will give a demo of SME with Scality.
Okay, so what we're going to do in this demo is we're going to take a look at the Storage Made Easy on-premise appliance and show it working with our Scality storage. We're going to show you how it works for both organization administrators as well as regular users, and we'll show it working across the many channels of access that we have. We'll finish by reviewing the standalone applications that we have for Scality. We'll start by logging in as the organization administrator, and what you'll notice when we log in is that we're greeted by a set of widgets on the home page that have been set by the organization beforehand. These can be whatever the organization wants them to be, and in this case they've chosen to have an RSS feeds and a Twitter feed as well. So we're going to go over to our dashboard now and configure our Scality storage. So we select Scality from the list of 50 providers, and the system will now take us through a wizard which will ask us a number of different questions to set up the Scality storage. So we're going to enter the name, we're going to enter the endpoint, the access key and secret key, and then we'll click continue. Next, it will then ask us which bucket we would like to use. In this case, we've already got one bucket that has some files on it. So we've now successfully added the Scality connector, and the system is just going to go away and scan the storage for the files that are on it. And now that's completed, what we'll do is we'll go over to the file manager and have a look at the files. So as you can see, we have our corporate files from our Scality storage there. And if we navigate into this folder, you'll see we have both a finance and human resources folders already on this storage. So what I want to do is I want to bring in the marketing folder that we have. And it's just a simple case of dragging and dropping those folders onto the cloud. Now those files will go to the cloud in a number of parallel processes, so it shouldn't take too long to upload. And once those are uploaded, what we want to do is we want to share those folders with our colleagues. So the way that we do this is through shared team folders. So we're going to convert each of these folders into a shared team folder, and we're going to change the permissions on this folder to allow the team, so for example in this case finance, we're going to give them access for read and write access to that folder. And we're going to do the same for both the human resources team and the marketing team. Now these users actually came through our LDAP system, which we connected to the appliance and then chose to automatically import and synchronize the roles that we have with our LDAP system. So as more staff join those departments, they'll begin to have access to those folders automatically. So we're going to show you how this looks for the users within the organization. So let's first review which users we do have within the company. So we're going to go over to Organization and then Users, and you'll see we have 3 team members inside this organization. One is Mary, one is Frank, and one is Harry. And because we integrated the appliance with our LDAP system, the roles for these users has been automatically imported. So you can see one is belonging to marketing, one is belonging to finance, and the other one is belonging to HR. In this case, we're going to look at Mary from marketing, and we're going to show you how the experience looks for her. So we'll log out as the organization admin, and we'll now log in as Mary from the marketing department. And you'll see again that she's then greeted by the custom homepage message that the organization has set up before with the Twitter and the RSS feeds. And we'll now just go over to the file manager to have a look at how she sees the files that have been shared with her. So you'll see she now has access just to the marketing folder and none of the other folders that are in the organization's storage. So she has access to the logos and the press releases. And from here she can preview the files. She can look at information about the files, such as when the file was created, and any governance information about the file. And she can also make comments about the file. So far what we have seen is access just through the web file manager. However, most users would like to access their files on their desktops. So in such cases we have our native drives that work on Mac, Windows and Linux. And here we're going to show it working on Mac. And we're logged in as Mary here, so she can see the same marketing folders and has access to all the same files and folders that she would through the web. The drive here works like any other folder on your file system, so you can open these files up in any of your native editors such as Microsoft Word and make changes in there as you wish, and you don't need to worry about where these files get saved back. You just simply save the file and that'll then be re-uploaded to the cloud, in this case Scality. So once this document's saved, you'll see on the right hand side a little progress indicator comes up telling us how far the upload is going, and it's nearly complete, and that's now uploaded to our Scality storage. So if we go back to the web file manager and refresh the view, you'll see down there that our version 10 appliance document now has another version, and if that version was made by accident, it's easy to restore from there. Likewise, other files also open in native desktop editors, such as Preview inside Mac for this PDF. Something we hear quite regularly in the enterprise world is, well, how do users share these files with both people inside the company and outside the company? It's not uncommon to hear users say that they have actually uploaded files that contain sensitive information to the company to their Dropbox account, or sent them using their personal email. Now, this is something that we really want to stay clear of when enforcing, the company's IT policy. So there's ways of enforcing secure file sharing through Storage Made Easy, and we're going to have a look at those now. One of these is through sharing links to files, which can all be audited and tracked by the IT administrators. For users to do this inside SME, they just select the file and they go to the Share menu and select Share by URL, and they can choose the link type. They can also set how long the link should live for, how many downloads the link can have, and also any passwords required to access the file. Once that's generated, they can then copy the link and then send that to a friend. And in this example, there was a limit and there was also a password set on the file. So the user has to enter the password, and once they've successfully entered the password, the file will then be downloaded to their computer. All of these actions are then audited and tracked through the system audit logs. To help enforce the secure file sharing, the integration with sharing links is also extended out to the desktop and mobile tools. So here in Mac Finder, the user is able to right-click on a file and then choose to share a link, which they then have the same controls that they have through the web. So they can set the expiry for the link, for example. They can set download limits and also set a password on the file. And again, that link then gets copied to their clipboard, which they can then share, to their friends over email or instant messenger. And this is in the Android app. So we have an account here and we can log in as Mary. And she can navigate to her files on the cloud, navigate to the specific file inside her marketing folder. So if she wants to share another press release, she can view the comments of the files from here. She can also download the files and open them up in an editor on her device. And she can also share these links as well. So she can enter the password here, also set expiries, whether she wants to email the link directly, and then that link will then be copied to her clipboard. So we have really deep and rich integration with a range of devices and platforms that really help to enforce secure file sharing. This also extends out to Outlook and Mac Mail, allowing users to share files that they have stored on their cloud. So what we've seen so far is how you can connect your storage, your Scality storage, with Storage Made Easy, and how end users will typically access these files, as well as the different tools that they can access these files over as well. So what we're going to look at now is what kind of policies and controls the organization can set on users' access, what they can do, and how they operate with their files. So we're now going to log back in as the organization administrator, and we're going to go to the options menu in the top, and we're going to have a look at the range of different options that exist here. So on the first page we have some options for user governance. This is where the organization can control the features that are available to users, for example, whether users are visible to each other, whether users can download files from the web, or whether, for example, file commenting is allowed. Below that, we have some file sharing policies, which dictate how users can share files. So it can, for example, enforce that users set passwords when they share links to files. We can also change the security of our files and the file access, so we can enforce that users have two-factor authentication or strong passwords. Next, we have the encryption, allowing you to set the encryption key so all the files that get stored on your cloud will be encrypted. Next, we have support for versioning and trash, allowing you to set how many versions of a file we keep. Following this, we also have data classifications, which allow your users and yourself to classify the files that are stored on your Scality storage, so you can enrich your searches of files. We also have a great annotation tool built into the product, so this can also be configured. A number of user interface options can also be changed, for example, which pages users see, the default folders users have access to, for example. You can also configure the notifications and which notifications get sent out. And finally, the appliance itself is fully brandable, so you can change the logos that display on the page and change the color themes if you wish. So here we're just going to update the logo for Acme Corp. Great, now that's done, anytime any users now log in, they'll see these logos. The final thing to look at from a management point of view is the audit logs. Throughout this demo, we have been logging in with different users, granting them different permissions, and performing various actions with them. The audit log captures all of the events that have occurred on the system and makes them available for administrators. From here, admins can search the history, as well as export the logs to CSV. These logs are also exportable through syslog, meaning that organizations can automatically export the logs from the system. So that concludes our look at the Storage Made Easy Enterprise Appliance. Aside from the Enterprise Appliance, we also have a number of standalone applications that organizations and users can adopt. Switching over to my Windows machine here, I'm able to show you the first of our standalone apps, the Scality Drive. The Scality Drive is similar in comparison to the Storage Made Easy Drive we saw earlier, in that it offers native file system integration with the Scality storage, so users are able to see their storage attached as a network drive, which they're able to access and operate on files with, as we're showing here. These changes are then reflected in the backend Scality storage. As I previously mentioned, the Scality drive communicates directly with the storage, so you don't get the benefit of complete auditing and tracking like you do with the Storage Made Easy drive, but it's a great tool to help with end-user adoption. The other standalone app I would quickly like to mention is the Scality Explorer. The Scality Explorer differs from the drive in that it offers a live view of your Scality storage. It doesn't do deep integration compared to the Scality drive, however it's very handy if you need infrequent access to the storage, are handling large volumes of data, or are looking for a tool to manage the objects you have in your Scality storage. That concludes the demo segment of this webinar.
Thank you very much, James. So we are arriving at the end of the webinar. Let's see, you can write your questions if you have any doubt. So here you've got all the contacts details in case you want to contact us, Storage Made Easy or Scality. And then let's check if we've got any question. Okay, so I can see one, it says, how is SME licensed? So Jim maybe can reply.
Sure. So Storage Made Easy is licensed on a per user basis. So it's not licensed on a per petabyte or per terabyte or per gigabyte basis. It's on the number of users actually used. And it also has some options to license on an appliance basis. So there are two different options there. Unlike some of our competitors, we don't license on a hybrid per user per amount stored. It's purely on a per user basis.
Thank you, Jim. So there is another question. Is asking, is there any archiving facility?
Okay, so we didn't show it in the demo, but there is a mechanism to archive. So the SME product has the ability to work with more than one connector and to work with more than one container from a Scality viewpoint. So if you wanted to, for example, if you wanted to archive everything from a SIF's front end to a Scality back end, then the SME product can facilitate this, and it can do similar for other connectors that we support, and there are about 50 of those. And there are various options on that archive facility that you can choose. I know that we have some of our customers in the US who are more prone to ransomware attacks, who use that archive facility to be able to facilitate an archive of data that they use frequently on users' desktops on the object storage. So in the event they get hit with ransomware, then they can flip the archive back and get access back to their data.
Okay, thank you, Tim. So I think if there is no any other question, we can finish for today. So thank you very much for attending. We hope we found the session informative, and we will be sending out the recording of this webinar in the few next days. We look forward to hearing from you. And Nigel, Jim, and James, thank you very much. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.